The restaurant was buzzing with soft jazz, expensive laughter, and the clinking of champagne glasses. To most, it was just another night of fine dining. But for one black teenager standing near the corner table, it would be a night that tested everything: his dignity, his strength, and his hidden truth. 4 men entered, loud and arrogant. Their tailored suits screamed money, but their eyes carried something darker: prejudice. They spotted him instantly, standing quietly with his backpack slung over his shoulder. "What's he doing in here?" one sneered. "Doesn't look like he belongs." The boy's heart pounded. He wasn't causing trouble. He wasn't begging or disturbing anyone. He was simply waiting for someone. But before he could explain, the men surrounded him, their smirks dripping with condescension. They pushed, mocked, and whispered words sharp enough to cut. Other diners lowered their eyes, pretending not to see, afraid to get involved. To them, he was just another kid out of place in a world reserved for the wealthy. But what nobody in that glittering room knew, not even the men circling him like wolves, was that the boy wasn't ordinary. He wasn't lost, and he wasn't powerless. He was the son of the man they feared most, the billionaire who owned the very building they stood in. And when the truth surfaced, the restaurant would never forget what happened next. Marcus was 17 years old, tall but lean, with a quiet confidence most people mistook for shyness. He grew up in a world of contrasts. His father, Charles Williams, was a self-made billionaire, an empire builder who had risen from nothing to become one of the wealthiest men in the country. His mother had passed away when he was young, and Charles raised Marcus with a mixture of discipline and compassion. But unlike other wealthy teens, Marcus hated attention. He didn't flaunt designer clothes or boast about expensive cars. Instead, he dressed simply: plain hoodie, jeans, sneakers. He wanted people to see him for who he was, not for what his last name carried. That night, Charles had invited Marcus to meet him at La Fontaine, one of the city's most exclusive restaurants. The plan was simple. Father and son would share dinner before flying out the next morning for a charity event. Marcus arrived a few minutes early. He preferred being on time, respecting his father's military-like punctuality. He stood quietly near the corner, observing the shimmering chandeliers and waiters gliding across the polished floor. But his presence didn't go unnoticed. In places like this, appearances mattered more than character. And for Marcus, who looked more like a high school athlete than a billionaire's heir, judgment came quickly. When the 4 men entered, they immediately commanded attention. They were regulars known for their arrogance and wealth, the type who believed money excused cruelty. Their eyes narrowed at Marcus, and in seconds, whispers turned into insults. "Hey kid, wrong place!" Burger joints down the street. Marcus tried to ignore them. His father had always taught him, silence is stronger than anger. Patience outlasts arrogance. But their voices grew louder. One of them shoved his shoulder, nearly knocking the backpack to the floor. Another laughed. The restaurant staff hesitated. No one wanted to offend wealthy patrons, and the boy looked ordinary. Why risk intervening? Marcus clenched his fists but held back. He wasn't afraid of them, but he knew his father wouldn't want a public scene. Still, the humiliation burned. He could feel every eye in the restaurant watching, yet no one moving to stop it. And then it escalated. "Don't ignore us, boy," one of the men barked, slamming his hand on the table nearby. Silverware clattered, and a few diners gasped. Marcus raised his eyes, calm but unshaken. "I'm not bothering anyone. Please leave me alone." His politeness only fueled their cruelty.
"You think you belong here?"
Another mocked. "Look at you. Hoodie, sneakers. Probably can't even afford a drink of water here." The laughter stung, but Marcus remained silent. Inside, though, a storm raged. One man stepped closer, invading his space. "Maybe we should escort you out. People like you lower the value of this place." That sentence cut deeper than any shove. Marcus's jaw tightened. He wanted to shout, to reveal the truth, but his father's lessons echoed in his mind. Strength isn't shown by loudness, but by control. The men grabbed his backpack and pulled it open, scattering his books onto the polished floor. Gasps rippled through the room, but still no one acted. Waiters froze, unsure whether to intervene. "Pathetic," one of them muttered, kicking a notebook aside. Marcus bent down to pick up his belongings, cheeks burning with shame. The humiliation wasn't just about him, it was about what they assumed he was worth. Less than them, less than everyone. But then, a voice thundered across the restaurant. "Is this how you treat a guest in my house?" Every head turned. Standing at the entrance was Charles Williams himself. Tall, commanding, dressed in a sharp black suit. The billionaire's presence shifted the entire atmosphere in seconds. The four men froze, their smirks fading into pale silence. Charles's eyes locked onto his son kneeling on the floor, gathering scattered books. For a brief moment, pain flickered across his face. Then it hardened into fury. He strode forward, each step echoing louder than the men's laughter had minutes ago. "Who?" he demanded, his voice like thunder. "Thought it wise to lay a hand on my son?" Gasps erupted. His son! The room buzzed with disbelief. The men stammered, words tripping over themselves. We didn't know. He looked out of place." Charles slammed his hand on their table, sending glasses trembling. "Out of place? In a building I own? In a restaurant where he has more right to stand than any of you?" Silence consumed the room. The four men shrank back, stripped of their arrogance. Charles turned to Marcus, lifting him gently to his feet. His voice softened. "You don't ever bow your head to ignorance, son, never." Then he faced the men again, eyes blazing. "You judged him by his skin, by his clothes, by your own prejudice. Tonight, you've revealed what truly makes someone unworthy, not where they stand, but how they act." The men were speechless, their power dissolved in the billionaire's truth. Charles ordered the manager over. "These men will never dine here again. Their money is worthless to me. Dignity is priceless." The entire restaurant erupted into applause. Diners who had been silent now stood, clapping, ashamed of their earlier cowardice but inspired by the billionaire's words. Marcus felt a weight lift off his shoulders. For the first time that night, he stood tall, not just as a billionaire's son, but as someone who had endured cruelty with patience and dignity. The four men were escorted out, their heads hanging low. The same crowd that once ignored Marcus now looked at him with respect. But Marcus didn't gloat. He simply whispered to his father, "Thank you." Charles placed a firm hand on his son's shoulder. "No, son. Thank you. Because you reminded me tonight that wealth means nothing if we don't protect what truly matters, our people, our pride and our truth." From that day forward, Marcus carried those words with him. He no longer hid from his father's legacy, but embraced it with humility and strength. And the men who had mocked him, they became a cautionary tale whispered around the city. The night four arrogant men tried to humiliate a boy, only to discover he was the heir to the empire they envied. That night at La Fontaine, everyone learned a lesson that would echo far beyond the restaurant's golden walls. Never judge a man by his skin, his clothes, or his silence. Because you never know who he really is. What would you do if you saw four men attack someone in a restaurant? Would you stay silent, or would you step in?